What's good, everyone? In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to master your aim in Apex Legends. Now, whether you crutch aim assist like me, or whether you're a mouse and keyboard warrior, I promise you these tips will help you out one way or another. I'm going to be giving you 6 of my best tips to help improve your aim. Now, depending on your skill level, some of these tips you may already be doing, but I want you to listen to all 6 so you can see if there's something you can add to your game to help you get more kills and do more damage for this new season. See, aim is one of the most fundamental aspects to being a great player in Apex, but it's not everything. If you guys are new here, my channel centers around helping you all improve at Apex Legends, so please be sure to check out other related videos of mine if you enjoyed this one. Without anything further though, let's just hop right into these 6 tips. Tip number 1, warm up. Now, I'll be honest, I thought about exclusively making this video about my warm-up routine and what I found to be extremely helpful for me and the other players I've coached. However, here we are, and regardless, I'm here to show you a warm-up routine in Apex is actually super important. The first thing I like to do is emulate what it's like dropping into a game. Go into the firing range, pick up a weapon I would ideally like to find, R301, flatline, whatever is your go-to gun of choice. Now, with no attachments, start trying to one-clip the dummies. Get familiar with the recoil pattern of the gun with nothing on it. This is going to be like when you drop into a game and pick it up off the floor. Obviously, it won't be fully kitted with attachments on it, and if you stay alive, get kills, and get more loot, then the more you will level up your gun. Now take this same premise and apply it to your warm-up routine. I start close to the dummies and then create more distance as I go along. I do this so the muscle memory kicks in faster and the recoil feels more controllable up close. The further I move back from the dummies, the harder the recoil will be to control. Once I do this a few times and I feel comfortable, I will start leveling up the gun and incorporate some movement because it's not super practical to do this while standing still. You're not going to be standing still in every engagement you get into, so you got to practice as if you're in an actual engagement. This warm-up routine is open, so you can add whatever you'd like to it, but it is important to warm up before you hop into some games, and I recommend doing this for about 10 to 15 minutes before you go in and try to fight all those Apex predators that you'd be commenting on my videos about. One of the best tips I can give you when it comes to mastering your aim is to one-tap that like button for the YouTube algorithm. This will only take a second of your time, it's free, and it helps my video out tremendously, so thank you so much for doing that. Now back to the rest of these tips. Tip number 2, prioritize your target and not your crosshair. One of the keys to being able to track your enemies is focusing on them and their movement, not so much your crosshair. Now, this isn't some novel idea that I came up with, it really centers around hand-eye coordination. See, if you can learn to get your field of view to where you turn as your opponent turns, or follow them with your eyes, it has a much easier time for your mind to connect to the actual target, and this way, your hands will follow the enemies with whatever they're doing. The goal should be to look at your target by centering your screen on them. If you know where they are, the crosshair will follow. Your mind controls your aim, and if you can focus on what is in front of you, or to the left or the right of you, your mind will know to follow that target. But a common problem I see in my coaching sessions is a lot of players try to compensate too much on the enemy's movement, and it ends up with them spraying all around the enemy and only connecting on a few of the shots. But the real solution here is to focus on the target and try to track accordingly. One of the keys to doing this is trying to stay calm regardless of the situation that you're in and regardless of how much of your clip you may or may not have just missed on your opponent. I will cover this aspect more later in the video though, so be sure to stay tuned. Tip number 3, learn to hip fire versus when to aim down your sights. Aiming down your sights will slow down your movement speed in a trade-off for having a tighter bullet spread. Different weapons have different strafe speeds. Guns like LMGs or marksman rifles will be a bit slower compared to SMGs or even a wingman. Quick fact about the wingman is it has the same strafe speed when you ADS as it does when you hip fire with it. That's why all those sweaty wraiths you run into with the wingman feel like their movement is insane. But anyway, let me first address this tip by saying if you're on controller, ADSing up close may be more viable in some situations, more so than if you're on mouse and keyboard. And the reason is generally controller players are on a much slower SENS and have aim assist. A general rule of thumb is if I feel like opponents are within 15 feet or less of me, I will use my hip fire. Now this may change depending on the gun I'm using too. The main habit you should develop is if opponents are close and you have an automatic weapon, try to use your hip fire spray. You will be surprised by the hip fire accuracy on some of these weapons, and you will be able to incorporate more movement with the hip fire spray, making you a harder target to track and hit, which ultimately results in you hopefully taking less damage while you output more damage. Now, it would take me a really long time to explain what guns I'm going to hip fire with or ADS with, but generally shotguns like the Mastiff or the Peacekeeper, I'm going to ADS up close with those guns because of the choke that is built into both of the weapons. The EVA 8 is more flexible for a hip fire spray, however. Another key to hip firing with your weapon is being able to track your opponents when they have unpredictable movement. It will be way easier to adjust to their movement if you're hip firing as opposed to if you're ADSing. So keep this in mind in all of your future engagements. Tip number 4, strafing. Strafing is a huge part of any FPS game, including Apex. Strafing allows you to make it more difficult for the opponent to hit you, but it inadvertently makes it more difficult for you to hit shots. Strafing will move your crosshair away from where you have it set to. And to improve accuracy, you're going to need to compensate the displacement that strafing causes. People tend to overlook that their own movement makes it more difficult for them to aim. If you are having trouble missing shots, actively think about how your movement is affecting your crosshair placement. Strafing, such as A and D spamming, or left to right spamming in other words, and crouch spamming are large components to dodging the enemy. Mirroring is another form of strafing that you can use, and in this case it makes shots easier to hit. When mirroring, you are essentially copying the enemy's movement, which makes it easier for you to hit shots, and it could possibly throw your enemy off guard. Do be careful about doing mirroring though, since they could catch on and be able to predict your strafe, allowing for them to possibly one-clip you. Tip number 5, settings and sensitivity. Hip fire and aiming down sight sensitivities as well as other settings can make a huge difference between you hitting the target and missing. Firstly, let's go over sensitivities. Now, I consulted with a couple of my mouse and keyboard homies, and this is what they told me. There is no objectively best sense when it comes to your mouse, but this does not mean there isn't a good range of sensitivities that you ideally want to try to be in. Typically, the most common DPI settings on mice are 400, 800, and 1600. Be sure to understand that DPI and in-game sensitivity are two separate things. If we are going by 800 DPI, the range you want to be in is anywhere from 1.2 to 2.4. Now, obviously, other factors such as mouse space might influence your preference. For my controller players, well, I play on 4.4 Classic. I don't use ALC and I don't use paddles. I play on a normal Xbox Elite controller. And for me, I really don't mess around with my settings or sensitivities too much because I found what works for me. And between me and my mouse and keyboard friends, our best tip is just find a sensitivity that works for you. Don't copy other people's sense just because it works for them or you look up to them. Find what works for you. So you may have to shop around a little and try some things out, but changing your sense isn't necessarily a bad thing. The issue is people change it far too often. You got to make sure you've had time to adjust to the sensitivity you are on before swapping to another one. Variation can be a good thing, and it will help break past walls and overcome plateaus, but this doesn't mean change your sense all the time. Tip number 6, don't stress if you miss shots. As I mentioned throughout the video, I do coach players in Apex, and I do it every week. If anyone is interested, the link will be in the description. But anyways, I see players panic a ton when they start to miss shots. So how does one not stress out when they start to miss? Well, practice will certainly help, but confidence is key here. There's a huge mental aspect when it comes to gaming. You need to feel confident regardless of the situation. If you panic and let that nervousness spiral you out of control, you may lose that fight or that game, but you can quickly adapt to missing your shots. The 3 ways I try to quickly adapt to missing shots is readjust, reload, and reposition. These 3 things can help me reset my mind and the fight. Now, it won't always be possible in every single fight you find yourself in, but if you try it, you will start to see how much more you can adapt in live time to change your course of action. Don't let missing shots bring down your mental and spiral you into a place of apathy or making poor decisions in-game or even for the following games. You need to have unwavering confidence, and this will help your game out tremendously, but it is a hard concept for some. So stay vigilant, stay positive, and you guys got this. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more Apex content. Thank you so much for watching. That's going to be it for me on this one. I'll catch you guys on my next upload. Peace.